Welcome back. Today we are going to do some work in the rear trunk of the FC, and I've got most everything finished in terms of prep for the fuel cell cage, but when it came to the front of the rear of the trunk, I had to like pinch these seams and try to weld them, and I was trying to figure out how to clean it up and just connect everything after I cut all the stock fuel cell mounting tabs off. While I was doing that, I noticed that this stud is totally loose. So the weld on the top of the stud, if you haven't seen behind here, the stud is welded to the top inside of this little frame. So I have some options. The right way to do it is to weld it from the top and not from the bottom, and make an access panel so that I can get in here and replace it in the future, or address any problems back here, because I don't want to have to grind and create this big mess after this chassis has been painted and I've got full interior back in it. It's just a mess. So I'm going to cut this all out, make a dimple dyed access panel, and then while I'm at it, I'm going to replace the passenger side stud because those threads are damaged from how many owners ago, and they don't make that. So that's something I'm going to have to design in CAD and have Rockwell tested so I can get an appropriate material to have a manufacturer turn those on a lathe for me. So that's definitely a big hiccup, but something that I probably should do anyway, just to alleviate any issues in the future. Honestly, if I bring a welder to the track, I could easily fix one of these major problems just by having an access panel and some replaceable studs. The only other way to get studs is to have a donor car, which I don't have. So we got these two studs out and all the grinding is done. The channel is prepped and ready for some new boxes and some new pins. Just waiting on the materials lab to give me some more info before I develop some new pins for that. And now we're on to the fun stuff, fuel cell prep. So all of this has been sanded and it's ready for welding. So I've got some rectangular and square tubing, and I've got my first send cut send order for the fuel cell in. And if you're not familiar with send cut send, it's a service that offers laser cutting, water jetting, and bending, tapping now, countersinking, powder coating. They offer so many different services. It's an awesome thing to take advantage of if you're in a small little garage like me, can't fit a water jet or anything like that. Very affordable, and this right here took maybe like a week to get here, so pretty fast too. But this, I'll drop in a design real quick to show you where I'm at with the concept of how I'm going to hold the fuel cell.
Oh my god! Wow!
So these straps are all laser cut and ready for dimple dies. It's already the proper size for 1-inch dimple dies, and then these are the front and back of the straps, and this is the bottom. So got the Radium fuel cell. I think this is the 14 gallon, it's the larger one. Definitely want to have more street capability with this, so went with the bigger one. But yeah, now's on to the fun part where I can actually mock all this up and build my fuel cell cage and get it tacked into the car. All right, big fail. I had all 6 of these that I tried, and it just was a giant U shape. I could not get it to flatten back out. As you press deeper, it should do that, but I chose too thick of a material. The max for this die is an 1/8 inch. This is an 1/8 inch, and apparently my press can't press it hard enough to get it to flatten back out. So I was just dicking around because this thing's already scrap, and tried it backwards to see what would happen, and now I know. This is the very first time I've done a dimple die. I just used too thick a material. So I think instead of scrapping both of these, I'm going to use my nice countersinking tool that I've got to put a fat chamfer on these holes and it'll still look good. So, you know, it costs money to learn lessons, so it is what it is. My first time, so and this one's going to be good. This other one I got to replace, and I'll just chamfer the holes instead of dimple dyeing them. But moving on to the actual cage design. This is all sketched from my CAD model. I just took all the dimensions down real quick. They're rough in CAD. I still need to actually get it fit up to the car now that I've got all the grinding work done. But this will get me close. So I've got my angles on what I want for these two kickbacks, and this is all 1.5 by 1 for the front and the back, and this is 1 by 1 square tubing for the sides. And all that should line up perfect to that 1-inch drop to bring it down here, and then I'll weld this front strap to the bottom strap that's just plain. So a little work to do there, but now I've got all my dimensions roughed out so I can start making my cuts, and then I'll just take off whatever's necessary off the left and right side once it's in the car to get it fit up perfectly centered inside of that trunk space. Alright, so we have the first bar done in the front, and now I think it's about time to put it into the car, and then I can gauge how far I need these end pieces to come off to the frame. Alright, so we got the fuel cell in the car, and now it's time to figure out where to place it inside of the trunk. You know, how far forward should I put it? I don't want to be too close to the 8.8 diff that I can't get the cover off. And I got a plan for the future. What if I don't have an 8.8 diff? And what if I go with a Winters? And I know it's best to keep this fuel cell above the axles or closer to center line to the axles for better weight distribution, but this Winters is really long. So the distance from the center of the axle in the Winters quick change diff to the face is about 10.25. You also need room to remove those bolts every time to make gear changes. The distance from the center of the axle on the 8.8 to the face of the front of the diff is only 5 inches. So I need to make sure that I'm leaving, you know, 10.25 inches plus room to get that cover off and get the gears in without being super inconvenient. Fast forward just a little bit. I've been working on this front bar here, and I've got this bar exactly the size according to my CAD model. And then I left my side pieces just a little bit long, but they're the exact same length right now. I'm gonna tack these in, and you know, using my fixture table to make sure everything's perfectly square and flat. Then I'll go to the car, figure out how much I need to take off, which only should be a little bit, and then I can just rip a little bit off of each side using the bandsaw. It's real quick, and this is going to be perfectly square. The frame rails are obviously not going to be as perfect, so it needs massage. I just left a little bit of extra room on the ends so I can, you know, fit it up inside the car. We are super close. It's like a press fit right there. So maybe just take a tiny bit off more and call it good, and then we'll take it over to our fuel cell and start building the rest of the cage off of it. So we've got the front bar all done, and it looks like it's going to fit up really nice. And I'm still going to use an offset. It's not going to be directly touching the fuel cell. So I'm going to put a little shim in there when we're ready to tack it up. Now I'm starting to think that the best method, instead of building the fuel cell cage and then dropping it in the car to weld, I'm just going to put this front bar where I want it and then make sure to weld it perfectly square in the trunk. And I think I'm just going to build everything very uncomfortably inside the trunk. So I wish I had a little bit more foresight and would have fully welded these before putting them inside the car and welding into the frame rail. All right, so the front and rear bars are fully welded and everything's done. I did mark out my bolt hole locations for the top. So the top is held with these M6 nuts and fasteners, and that pinches the two tops together, and I need to be able to allow this whole assembly to fit through my 1.5 by 1 tubing. So that means I need to drill out probably like 5/8, which would be 625. So it'll give me plenty of clearance so that when I drop the whole fuel cell assembly down, the already bolted together top will have clearance to slide through these. All right, so it's basically day 2 working on this fuel cell, and off camera I ended up going to get some new 5/8 drill bit instead of the step bit, and that worked really well. So I've got all these nasty burrs all over this thing, and I don't have a countersink big enough to get a good chamfer on it. So one of the tools that I bought last year that's been super nice is this chamfering tool. You can get it on Amazon. I don't remember the brand, it's just Chinese, cheap, air powered. And that's how I did the chamfer on my fixture table. So yeah, all these holes even, it's super nice. So I'm gonna do that for all of those holes. And then additionally, I'm going to chamfer these holes in the fuel cell straps because I can't dimple die this thick of a material like I thought. So that'll make it look a lot better and not just some plain hole. So I got the top actually fastened this time after clearancing all my holes out well with a new bit. And now it's time to move on to the front straps. So I've got my nutserts all drilled and put in, and I'm working on these straps. Got one side welded, and I'm just jigging up the second side, and just gonna weld it now. Holy cow, I'm getting good. So the bottom straps are all mounted and finished up, and they fit pretty good. I do need to, I think, increase my clearance size here just a bit so that I can center the strap better on the fuel cell, because I had it just a little bit long, so there's a little bit more gap in the back than there is in the front. So looks really good from this side, but I do need to center it a bit. And pulled out the bolt assemblies on the sides, and it really doesn't go anywhere at all, but I've already got the material purchased. I might just still do the 1x1 tube here anyway. So probably work on that now. Oh, too short. What the hell? It is short if I leave the square tube perfectly up against the fuel cell. I don't necessarily want that. I want this thing to slide in well, and it'll be strapped down from the top right here anyway. So it's already like located left and right. That shit won't move. I got it really tight already. So this can be the right length if I just bring it out a little bit. So if I line it up just a hair over flush with the outside of the top of the tank, I can make up that gap and I've already plotted my holes and know that my clearance holes will still work, so I don't know. I think I'll just probably run with this and match it on the other side, and it leaves about, I don't know, about an 1/8 inch to, I mean, it's probably about an 1/8 inch of a gap, which is good, so maybe that worked out for the best. So one thing I didn't do in CAD, I didn't draw the clearance holes, so I didn't realize that this one was going to interfere, and I don't know, I'm just not a fan of this whole sidebar that much. I just don't think it's really that necessary. The fuel cell can't move any to the left. It's all tight right here. So I'm just gonna leave it as is, and I think it'll be fine. So right now I am just finishing up these straps, and I cut out some flame retardant plastic, or not plastic, rubber. I wanted it as a little bit of a buffer, and I got some double-sided tape. We'll just stick it to the underside, and it should give it some nice padding to rest against the bottom of the fuel cell. Just look at how nice that turned out. So we got the fuel cell cage completely finished. I'm super happy with how things turned out. All of the laser cut parts just turned out amazing. So it looks super clean, went together really nice. All the welds are great. I am missing this top strap. I did have to submit another order to Send Cut Send because I had tried to dimple die too thick a material, if you remember. So I scrapped that piece. I'm waiting on another one, and then this top will be fully done. So now's the fun part where I get to go through all these boxes I've had in my basement collecting dust for the last year. So it's just everything that needs to go into the fuel cell. The fuel level sensor, filler neck, and the FCST, which is the fuel cell surge tank. It has 2 surge tank pumps and then 1 lift pump. So those are all Wabro 450. And lots of other little goods. So we'll start tearing into that and put it into the car and start mocking up some other things like the filler neck, where I want to put that. I got to make a custom bracket for that too, and hopefully get moving on this. Okay, so here we have our FCST, and I was getting ready to put it in and realized that with this 14-gallon fuel cell, the configuration that it comes in when I ordered it with the 2 Wabro 450s inside the tank and the 450 lift pump, it doesn't come with a low enough hanger to actually position the sock towards the bottom of the 14-gallon tank. And as you can see, I've got it as low as I can get it, and it's barely hanging on. So it is listed on their instructions. I forget the part number right now, but I do have to buy a new hanger, it looks like. And so at least I'm going to mock it up though. I'm definitely going to buy that, because you pay for 14 gallons, you want to get 14 gallons. So it's worth doing. But at least we'll get it in and mocked up. All right, little tech tip. Apparently you need the top to be just slightly loose, and then drop your FCST in first. The threads just weren't quite lining up otherwise. Like, this whole section was good until I got to the very end. So now I know this is why we mock things up. And this is also why we don't just use power tools for everything, because you just never know. And it would really suck to ruin some threads on something this expensive and nice. Now that everything's started, we can sand it home. right, that's gonna do it for this video. I got the fuel cell cage all welded. Everything's pretty much finished. I just have to replace this one strap from Sencut Sen that I messed up when I tried to dimple dye too thick a material. So, and I also need to get a longer fuel pump hanger to accommodate the 14-gallon cell. But yeah, things are moving. It looks so race car now. I love it. Radium parts are super high quality. I'm really the most happy with these lower straps. They just turned out so cool. It's gonna look really good from the rear with a bumper cut and in a nice color. So I'm gonna do an accent color of red. It's a really nice tropical glitz color, and the whole car will be black. So all this laser cut stuff will pop. Fuel cell cage will be really nice. And I still need to do a floor underneath this 1.5 by 1 tubing, and that'll all be black. So it'll be pretty cool. I'm excited. This has been a really fun fab project, just kind of learning as I go. So in the next video, I'm going to start transitioning to the front, I think, where I'm gonna start working on the upper radiator support. I've already got the lower done, but right now it's just held in there with a 2x4, keeping it located this way. So yeah, there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more videos to come. Just subscribe if you want to keep following along. Drop a comment if you have any questions and let me know.